Hey guys, so welcome back. Today I wanted to share an idea with you that no thought is ultimately true or untrue, and this thought itself is very helpful. So before I get into that, as usual, if you get something from this talk, you can help me out by subscribing to whatever channel you're on, if you're on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. Giving me a like, leaving a comment also helps out, and it is the support, the financial support of viewers like you that make these talks possible. So if you'd like to be a contributor in that way, check out the links. There are several different ways that you can contribute and help me continue. All right, so no thought is ultimately true or untrue. This is a very powerful idea in today's environment because there's a lot of people playing around with the idea of truth and bending the truth and distorting the truth, and especially in politics in this country anyway, there's a lot of people who are trying to act like the truth is whatever we want to make it. So some thoughts are more aligned with reality and some are not aligned with reality. So instead of thinking about, well, that's true or that's not true, truth very often comes, what we call truth is really just perspective. And so how someone is viewing something, how someone is interpreting something, this is very often when people say, well, that's not true or that's true or whatever it is, this is very often what people are talking about. So some thoughts are more aligned with reality and some are not. And generally speaking, the more aligned with reality our thoughts are, the less suffering we will have. And I'll give you an example of that so that you can see a concrete example. It's a very simple example, but it applies. This idea applies across the board. So let's say that there's a brick wall in front of me and I have the thought, I can walk through a brick wall. That brick wall isn't real. I can walk through it. And then I walk into the brick wall. What is the result going to be? Suffering, pain, right? It's quite obvious. Now I can go on and on arguing that the wall isn't there, or that I can walk through the wall, or very often with human beings, I should be able to walk through the wall, right? People shouldn't do this to one another. People should behave. People should follow the law. People should be ethical. People should be moral. People should. But they're not. Humans have never been the way that we think humans should be. And yet, here we are. So, I should be able to walk through a brick wall. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I believe that. Doesn't mean I can. And if I insist, well, this is how it should be, I'm just going to cause suffering for myself and possibly others too. Because maybe I can convince other people that they should be able to walk through brick walls, and then they start doing it. Or even I can just cause suffering for those who love me and who see me walking into the brick wall over and over again, maybe bloodying my nose and getting scars and falling down and hitting my head. Those who love and care about me are going to suffer watching me do this. It'll be very painful for them. Okay, so just because I have the thought, I should be able to walk through that wall. Why would I have that thought? Well, physics tells us the wall is mostly empty space. It also tells us that you are mostly empty space, what we call quantum physics. So it makes sense. Should be able to walk through that wall, empty space through empty space. What's the problem? And yet, can't walk through the wall. Another example of thoughts that don't align with reality that can create suffering is, let's say that I believe dragons are real and that they are harmful. And I live in constant fear of the dragon invasion. Well, I'm going to make myself pretty miserable. Now, you might be laughing. No one believes in dragons. But there's a lot of conspiracy theories these days, aren't there? And conspiracy theories tend to be constructed in such a way that you can never disprove them. There's no way for you to verify whether or not the conspiracy theory is actually true or not. And the important thing to ask ourselves about conspiracy theories is, what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about this conspiracy theory? What am I going to do about the Illuminati? Is there anything that I can do? What am I going to do about whatever it might be, whatever conspiracy I might think is happening? Most of us find that there's little to nothing we can do. But the theory, the idea that there is Illuminati controlling the world, trying to oppress me, this is a very dark thought. And it might cause me quite a lot of suffering. Just like worrying about dragons might cause me suffering. Now again, you may say, but the Illuminati are true. It's true, Doug. That's why I'm suffering, because it's true. Is it? Are you going to introduce me to the Illuminati? Are they going to say, yes, Doug, it's true? But I read in this book, and this person said that they talked to, yes, great. We might be able to find some people who claim that they've seen dragons. So again, it's not so much about whether or not it's true or not. It's, does it align with reality? And then again, the next step that we can take is, even if it does align with reality, is there anything that I can do about it? Now, a lot of these things we read on the internet, we can read things, we can watch videos, we can get convinced. It doesn't mean we actually know. How will you know for sure the Illuminati are real? When you sit in on an Illuminati meeting, when you get invited by one of the Illuminati and they say, oh yeah, we're real, we're in control of everything, welcome to our board meeting, which will probably never happen. So just because someone writes a book, someone gets on YouTube, someone gets interviewed, says, oh yep, it's real, still doesn't mean that it's real. All right? So we can save ourselves a lot of suffering by letting go a lot of these ideas. And it doesn't have to be conspiracy theory. A lot of the things we read in politics, a lot of the things we read about public figures, about different things, this can cause a lot of suffering, again, for us. So one of the most honest and powerful thoughts that we can have is, ultimately, I just don't know. Ultimately, what do you really know for certain? And if you're really honest and you're really astute in your examination of that, which is what we do in philosophy. I studied philosophy in high school and then again in college. And if you really dig into that investigation of what we can really know, what you find is there's almost nothing. There's almost nothing we can really be certain of. And so if that's true, then we can ask ourselves, why put a lot of energy and time being upset about things that I cannot change and I'm not certain are actually true? Again, if you're an Illuminati and you know that they are controlling the world, and you can sit on a vote to disband the Illuminati, by all means, please do so. Okay? If you're privy to something and you have influence and power and you can create a change, by all means. But again, where most of us are with these conspiracy theories, with our ideas about politics, is we are not able to do much. We have our vote, we can have conversations with other people, but there's very little we actually can do. And as I've discussed in other talks, you are a much greater influence when you're coming from a place of peace and love rather than frustration and anger. So if you want to convince the world of your point of view, you're going to reach them with love. This is what Martin Luther King did. This is what Gandhi did. As human as those individuals may have been, I know that it's somewhat popular in today's culture to bash those types of figures. But from my perspective, from a spiritual perspective, their message was very powerful, even if the vehicle for that message was flawed. I know that the vehicle for this message, this guy right here, is very flawed. Very, very flawed. So maybe we're waiting around for the perfect vehicle. Maybe we think the Buddha or Jesus were perfect. If we had lived in their lifetime, there's a very good chance we wouldn't have thought that. Because many people who met Buddha or met Jesus weren't of that opinion in their time. So looking back, we might say, oh, these were spiritual geniuses. If I had met them, I would have immediately fallen in love and started following their message. Maybe. But many didn't. So were they flawed vehicles for their message? Were they human after all? I don't know. And again, that's a very powerful thing to understand and to admit to ourselves. Ultimately, I don't know. Ultimately. Does that mean that you can't act? Does that mean that you get paralysis by analysis? Absolutely not. You still have to act. You still should vote. You still might need to state your opinion. But as I've mentioned before in the past, very often we don't have to have an opinion. Very often we don't need to have a strong opinion about many, many, many things. In the morning, I need to get up out of bed. Then at a certain point, I need to eat. Then at a certain point, I need to sleep. Many days, I have to go to work. If I don't, there are going to be consequences that I don't want to face. These are important decisions, and they're not even hard. When it's time for me to go to work, I go to work. I don't debate about it. Other things, again, things that I can't control, the world spinning out of control, politics, all these things are things that weigh on us heavy because we don't have control over them. And we don't need to. To have peace, to have joy, and as I've said in another talk, this is what the world needs from you right now. It needs you happy, joyful, peaceful, desperately. So letting go of the things that we can't really know. Letting go of this idea of I have the truth and I need to convince others of it. Finding the peace that comes from doing that practice, and then sharing that peace with the world. Again, this is just one person's perspective, and I've been wrong about so many things. So feel free to ignore me. But what I share are things that I've found very valuable on my own journey, and I know things used to be very different for me. So as flawed as I might still be, as much as I may still have difficult times, by comparison to how I started in this life, I've come a very, very long way. And so if anything that I've learned along this way can help you, that's my intention in sharing in this video. So thank you for listening. I hope you get something from it. And if you do, you know what to do. Thank you. Namaste.